One sec. All right. I'm going to write some code here. I'm in a new development environment. It looks maybe the same to all of you folks, but I pretty much fully expect everything to break. And in fact, this isn't working. This was working a second ago. Not really sure what's causing this to fail. Let's try shutting this down. I feel like this red screen is not good. Let's try just restarting Android Studio. This this is more promising than the red screen. I guess we'll very slowly run Gradle. Okay. So when I left off, I had this simple demo that I think I stole from somewhere. And this is really laggy. I'm wondering if I'm making my graphics card unhappy by running the emulator while also streaming. There seems to be some issue here. EGL emulation stuff. Okay, do I have? Okay, so this should be able to speak things. I don't know why in this demo it doesn't have the language pre-selected, but we can find English. Yeah, this is super laggy. I tried using screen copy and it was also super laggy. And also these fonts look really bad. So I'm not really sure what's up, but hopefully this should speak some text. Okay, I can hear it. I just didn't have my monitor turned up. All right, so that's like proof of concept that the text to speech system works for certain interpretations of working. And then the other thing that I had going on here is a web view. And I think I just have to uncomment something to get the web view going here. It's a different Flutter app. Is it not going to show me running devices? Yeah. Okay. So this is some web view, and the web view has loaded a particular URL, presumably the Flutter URL, because what else would that be? And my goal is to somehow merge these two together. So I want to load up a URL and have it speak the contents. And to do that, let's check out what API is actually available in this web app thing. We have Material app, this Lector web view demo. It's been several months since I've looked at this, so I have basically no recollection of what of how any of this code goes. Okay, so we have this WebView widget. This WebView widget is from a library, namely WebView Flutter, that's going to wrap the native WebView on Android and on iOS. It doesn't work on desktop or the web, which is pretty intuitive, but that's the reason why I can't develop this without an Android emulator right now. Okay, so the WebView widget extends stateless widget, so it's stateless. Is that surprising? That's not entirely surprising. It has some key. I don't know exactly what a key is. Some uniqueness key. And a controller, a WebView controller. A text layout direction, which is currently set to left to right. This feels like this should depend on the language. And something about one sequence gesture recognizer. I guess I'm curious enough to look up what that's supposed to be about. So it's some gestures library. Recognize one gesture at a time. So this is, I guess, things like tap and drag, eager gesture recognizer, and so on. Okay, so I don't really know anything about gestures. And then we've got some from the platform creation params, which I assume is some of the logic that's going to detect which, whether we're on Android or iOS. We pass in the key, which I think is the same key. We have this platform WebView widget creation params. So we're creating some parameters, passing in the platform in the layout direction and the the gesture recognizers. Okay, and so what does this return? Well, it's a class. It doesn't return anything. This is just, I guess, some constructor. I kind of forget Dart. And down here we have some methods, including the from platform creation params, which is just calling the from platform WebView widget. So the platform WebView, I'm guessing, is just a like a sum type over the two implementations. Oh, WebView widget delegate, etc. Okay, so we're seeing here we pretty quickly delegate. It looks like to the native implementations. But what can we do? What's the API? Perhaps this is a question for the documentation. So let me know if there's issues with my mic audio. I've tried to wire up some new stuff. I'll try playing some music and we'll see if that works. Maybe you'll be able to hear it. Maybe you won't. Maybe the music will be terrible. I don't know. I'll try some of this stream friendly royalty free music. Okay, so this is the WebView class has been removed. Its functionality has been split into WebView controller and WebView widget. The controller handles all the functionality that is associated with the underlying WebView provided by each platform, such as loading a URL, setting the background color, clearing the cache, etc. Okay, so I think that's really what I want. And then the WebView widget takes a controller and handles other Flutter widget stuff, like layout, direction, gesture recognizers. Let's check out this controller. So we have some platform-specific features. I guess you can like pass specific parameters to them, which doesn't bode well because it kind of seems like we're having a forking implementation depending on the platform, which maybe calls into question whether this is really like a cross-platform solution, but maybe it is. Maybe there's enough here that I don't have to use much of the custom per platform stuff. We have this load request makes a specific, I don't know what specific means, as opposed to a generic, makes a specific HTTP request and loads the response in the web view. But how do I control the HTTP request. Here's maybe what I want right now. Load HTML string. All right, so let's try load HTML string. And where did this go? So here's this is stuff I think I wrote. What is this? So this is preventing the loading of stuff from youtube.com. Why? Okay, so we have some color, which is what, white. JavaScript mode is unrestricted on lines 8 and 9. Then we have a navigation delegate, and I'm guessing that's going to delegate to the native implementation. We have an on progress function, so that I guess we can update a loading bar. Although I don't know if we have to draw our own loading bar. I assume that they have a loading bar implemented in some way. And then like a hook for when the page starts, when it finishes, when there's a web resource error, and this on navigation request, which is, I guess, a hook into when you're asking for a resource. Or I don't know. mm, Maybe this is just load, when load URL is called, or something like load URL. And then we call, on this specific implementation, we call load request on flutter.dev. I don't know why we're banning YouTube here. I think maybe this is just showing some of the functionality. Or maybe it doesn't work with YouTube. I don't know. Okay, so here's the navigation delegate class. This is callbacks for accepting or rejecting navigation changes and for tracking the progress of navigation requests. This class contains an underlying implementation provided by the current platform. Once a platform implementation is imported, the examples below can be followed to use features provided by a platform's implementation. So you can do stuff like this. If the WebView platform instance is a WebKit WebView platform, that means I think we're essentially on iOS. Then we have this, I guess we grab this appears to be some sort of cast. So we cast the platform as the WebKit navigation delegate, which is final. I'm not sure I understand the difference between final and const. Final means single assignment. A final variable or field must have an initializer. Once assigned a value, the final variable's value cannot be changed. Final modifies variables. Const modifies values. You can use it when creating collections and when creating objects instead of new, like const point 23 here. Const means that the object's entire deep state, the deep state can be determined entirely at compile time, and that the object will be frozen and completely immutable. Okay, so const implies not only immutable, but also compile time. And it applies to values as opposed to variables. And then they have some restrictions. Okay. So they give the example of date time now. I guess you could set a final date time now variable, but not a const one. Okay. So we can essentially figure out, do some reflection to figure out what whether we're on Android or iOS, and then possibly do different things for them. And then I'm curious about what all of the callbacks are. So started, finished, on progress. I guess all of them are implemented in the example we saw. On auth request, I don't think we saw URL change. And then I don't think we saw, in this file, I don't think we saw, what is it, on navigation request, did we? Oh, here it is. And what is a navigation request? It's the URL and whether we are in the mainframe. And so what is Android? Android has this like stuff like should override URL. Is should override URL really deprecated? What can I use extend? You need to override both methods. Should override URL loading is deprecated, and should override URL loading passing in the web view, and the web resource request is added in 24. And should override URL loading does what? In this case, it parses some URL and then calls handle URL, which returns a Boolean. So I don't think it's, well, I guess in this case, it's starting some activity and then returning true. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what it means by loading it. You are loading it in the URL yourself, but we'll see. Okay, so I should be able to, instead of saying load request, I should be able to do something like load. Yeah. And then hopefully this will just load some string. Devfs. I don't know what devfs is. Is that part of the hot reload functionality? Stop this. Stop doing this. This is evil. I don't know why I keep getting disconnected from the emulator. All right. It doesn't like that I'm missing a semicolon. I forgot that Dart cares about semicolons. A little bit unusual in this day and age. Okay. So I've loaded something. It's technically text, although these are the worst fonts I think I've ever seen. I assume that it means I'm doing something wrong, but I don't know quite what. I can zoom in. I don't know how I zoomed in. I just clicked and dragged. I probably did some sort of gesture, and whatever that is. Is that why I had a white screen before? Is that I had like scrolled? Huh. Okay. Well, I guess double clicking does the zoom action. So what if we just make it a headline? Is that going to make a difference? And is it actually hot reloading? It doesn't actually seem to be reloading. Maybe I need to click a button. I guess maybe it's not hot reloaded. Well, I feel like if I make a change, it should reload. Maybe it doesn't know to rebuild when I change this string for some reason. I'll try stopping the app and starting it again. Okay, so that's slightly better. And then I guess now the question is what? I don't know. So I can load HTML. I don't know if I can load something with images. I think if I load something with images, I essentially have to serve it from a web server. Is that right? I should have Gemini built in here. So I'll ask, why does the text on my WebView controller look so small and degraded? So by default, WebView renders web content using a mobile viewport. This means that the content is scaled to fit the smaller screen of a mobile device, which can result in text appearing small and difficult to read. To ensure your web content is displayed correctly in a web view, you should configure the viewport using the meta tag within the head of your HTML file. Yeah. Okay. So can you? I don't know if it will edit my file for me. Oh. So is there a plugin? The live template code completions. Yeah. That's not good enough, man. All right, so I can try this. This goes where in my HTML document? I think it doesn't like that I have double quotes. They do single quotes. And I will ask Gemini, why doesn't this hot reload when I change the call to, what is it, load HTML string? Okay, so this is better visually. So the hot reload mechanism has certain limitations, and changes within WebView are often not hot reloaded effectively. This is because the WebView runs in a set platform specific context, and the content is not directly managed by the Flutter framework. So platform channels changes related to platform channels may not be reflected during hot reload. The underlying rendering and execution of the WebView happen within the native platform's browser engine. Hot reload primarily affects the Dart code and might not propagate changes to the native side, and then there might be caching, which might interfere with hot reload. Okay, so well, at least I have this working. Font slightly better. Yeah, I'll just call it lecture. Okay, so we have this "What's up, y'all" thing, and this is just a proxy for loading a web page that is somewhat limited in the sense that it doesn't have like JavaScript. It's like layout doesn't depend on JavaScript or anything like that. And it doesn't have a lot of like navigational or metadata elements the way that like a Wikipedia page would, for example. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to know is, can I load? So this is for a read it later style app, and I don't. I guess I'd rather not just have to run a web. What you call it? A a web server, an HTTP server to uh, to serve up all of these documents. It would be nicer to be able to do things essentially as file transfers. But I don't know if the WebView can load an archive. So I'll ask, can the WebView load a website archive file? So Android's WebView doesn't directly support loading something something. Loading archive files like .mht or .webarchive. It has save web archive. There's no corresponding method to load them. This limitation has been a long-standing issue, and developers have explored various workarounds, such as trying to load the archive file as a local file using load URL. However, this approach doesn't work as expected and might only display the raw archive content instead of rendering the web page. If you need to display the content of a web archive file in your Android app, you might need to consider alternative solutions. Custom parsing. So I could write a thing to uh, write my own parser to extract the HTML and then load it using load with uh, no, go away. Hang on. And just trying to delete this spam message. I don't know how to do any of this chat stuff, so I guess I'll just give up. All right. Um, so if I do custom parsing, I could, yeah, this is complex. I might not handle all archive formats correctly. I don't want to do that. There's maybe some third-party libraries. That's probably too difficult. And I could try alternative formats like a single HTML file with embedded resources. or a zip file. But then in order to do that, I have to be able to load images, right? So I bet the Android WebView has a load image thing. Maybe not. Maybe it's hard enough that you need to ask. Stack Overflow. Load data with base URL. You can set it to the empty string, text HTML, blah, blah. Oh, wait, this is the question. We have some path. And what is this doing? So we have some HTML and it's got some image and it's setting the source file to whatever we got from the path. And so this I guess essentially just works. Get external storage directory, get absolute path. All right. So I don't know though if that would work with this Flutter thing. Maybe let's see. There's some Flutter plugin that provides external storage path. And that's legacy. And there's some other plugin. You can also add path provider. Okay, this is just some third-party library. I don't want to. I don't want to use a library for getting a directory. Okay, so I'll ask in Flutter, how can I get a directory? How can I access storage? So we import path provider, get internal storage directory. And this is async. Let's see if this works. So I guess it is some package, but it is apparently provided by Flutter. Okay, so we create this controller, and in the controller creation thingamajiggy, we call load HTML string. So what if we, uh, what if we move this somewhere else? I don't know. What does load HTML string actually do? Does it actually return a controller? No, it returns a future void. And so this is already async. So how do I tell, uh, I guess what I want to do is call a function after this thing is built. But does set navigation delegate return a, no, it does return, wait, hang on. So I guess this function is just executing, like, I don't know if this is equivalent to calling one method and then calling the rest. No. Okay, so let's try adding this path, whatever to call it. The dot dot notation allows you to call extra methods on a thing. So for example, here, oh, uh, maybe this is equivalent to this. I think it is. Nope, no. Maybe this needs a terminator thing. Doesn't this declare the variable? Okay, so we have this. Am I misspelling controller? I don't think so. So at this point, we should have this thing, right? Or is this async? Maybe I'm missing something fundamental about Dart. In this example, they make a list, and then they have list, and then a new line. They call a bunch of stuff, and they end it with a semicolon. So var paint, paint. So they're calling the dot dot methods after the constructor as opposed to here. They have a new line with list. So the constructor paint returns the paint object. The code that follows the cascade notation operates on this object, ignoring any values that might be returned. So this should be the object returned, I would think. What if I say var controller? Hmm. Let me ask if this list stuff is valid. Dart. Okay, so that seems to be valid Dart, and I'll ask about this. Let's make it simple by just doing one action on it. If it says the cascading is used correctly, this method likely exists to configure blah, blah, blah. That method might not exist, which I think it does, unless it's defined on some other object. I don't know Dart so well, but I think this is a method of the class. If maybe it's called before the WebView controller is properly initialized or attached to a WebView. Hmm. This is the name controller is already defined. So when I try to use this code, I get the error that the name controller is already defined. Was it the definition is just the line above it, like in the list case? Okay, so Gemini is saying that the issue is that I'm trying to control call methods on it before it's been fully initialized. I cannot call methods on an object during its declaration. You should move the code that configures the WebView controller to a place where the controller has been properly initialized, such as the init state method of a stateful widget. Okay, so I guess I can make this stateful. So I think it's telling me I have to make a stateful extension of the stateless web view, although I don't think that's the case. I think I'm not sure. Let's check out the documentation for the web view thingy. So here's some examples. They have a web view example that extends stateful widget with this create state method and with the late final binding controller. And in the so this is kind of coming back to me. So the stateful widget. So you extend the stateful widget with this class, and this is like a friend class. which I don't know if this underscore is conventional, but I think it is. And this friend class extends state of the class that's a stateful widget. So it's like the state that um, that belongs to it. And we have this controller thing, which is the controller. I don't know if it's the thing that ultimately manages the state, but we'll see. And so we've got this init state. We will call the super method doc region. I don't know what doc region is, but this final this late binding WebView controller, we will handle, I guess, attaching it here. Well, no, here. And this is some platform WebView controller creation. These are some parameters that are also late final, but are not declared up here. I guess maybe because we consume them in the init state and we don't need to refer to them outside of it. At any rate, we create this controller and we set a bunch of stuff. And this is justified in a crazy way because it's a debug print for a raw string. And it's got a bunch of logic like blocking requests, allowing navigation, similar stuff from the other example. It's going to add a JavaScript channel with a toaster. I guess it's just going to show like a pop-up saying that the JavaScript message was received, and then it's going to load a URL, which I guess is the default URL. And if the controller platform is this thing, we'll enable debugging. I don't know what all this doc region stuff is. And at any rate, we have created that controller with no underscore, and then we set the underscore controller to it. That'll be the reference that we keep to it. And then we implement the build function, which is going to do what? So we have some app bar, which is like the title bar of the app in the mobile app sense. And then the body, main thing in the app is this web view. We have some favor button, which is a floating action button. And when you press it, we're going to get the current URL. And if mounted, I don't know what mounted means. Maybe that means, maybe mounted is a Flutter thing. We will favorite the URL, by which will just like pop up a notification that it's been favorited. And then we've got this open dialog thing. And this is for authentication. I guess you can type in your password and stuff. And these are some options like show user agent, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. But so if I'm understanding correctly, the controller is the state. Is that right? You have no set state. Yeah, I don't see a thing here where we like set the URL. I don't know if it's intending us to like change the controller every time the URL changes, but I don't think that's the case. At any rate, so I guess I'll try to create an extension of the web view and allow the URL to change. I can't remember why I was even trying to do this. Yeah, okay. So I was trying to do this because I wanted to get um, the directory, and that's not I don't have a place yet where I can execute a command and then uh, set an HTML document that refers to an output of that command. Do I? Maybe I do. So the Android, you know what, I need to go. The Android version of loading an image file uh, required a load base URL thing, right? Load data with base URL. And I don't even think I have the equivalent of this in Flutter. I have load HTML string. Oh, wait. No, I do. There's a base URL here. Okay. But I don't know if it will load from an image path. We have this question from the Stack Overflow. Is WebView Flutter from the Flutter team? Yeah. Well, put an HTML file in the assets folder. See this and call it help.html. Do I just have an assets folder? Then in your code, you load it. And you can parse the data. Okay, so we can load like our main assets. The thing that I'm not sure of is can we load a like save an image to disk and load it? I think we should be able to. So I'll stop here and I'll be back tomorrow and hopefully I'll get a an earlier start.